you saw that prayer meeting at the White House. I don't know if you saw the photograph of people, all these religious leaders laying hands on him. I really do believe that when Trump escaped that assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania, in the run-up to the presidential election, that he started to believe what a lot of evangelical pastors are telling him, that he is here for a purpose, that he's somehow part of God's mission, even though he's not particularly religious himself.
Now, US Democrats have criticised Donald Trump for his response to the price of oil rising to its highest since 2022, saying it's proof he's failing on his promise to bring down the cost of living. Posting on his Truth Social platform, the president said short-term oil prices, which will drop rapidly when the destruction of the Iran nuclear threat is over, are a very small price to pay for USA and world safety and peace. Only fools would think differently. Well, with me now is Sarah Baxter, director of the Marie Colvin Centre for International Reporting and also the former deputy editor of the Sunday Times. Hello, Sarah.
Hello, Hugo.
Thanks for being with us. So, look, the chair of the Democratic National Committee, Ken Martin, says that Trump is too focused on the war despite Americans' concerns about it, while inflation only gets worse at home. Is that right? How much support does Trump have from the US public about this war?
He doesn't have very much, to be frank. He went into this war underwater in the polls, and he still is, as far as sort of favorability is concerned. What just strikes me is it was only a couple of weeks ago at the State of the Union address that he was promising Americans that they were in a golden age of low gas prices, petrol to Spritz, and that things could only get better. And here, the other thing, of course, is he was saying that the stock market was booming. Now, what have we got? Rising gas prices and a tottering stock market. So, and the return, of course, with it of inflation. So, yes, the affordability message has gone out the window. But being Donald Trump, he tells us, don't be a panican. That's official. That's what he said. Panican being the derisive term for people who might think, what the hell's going on here? And feeling a little worried about the global warfare and their wallet.
He does have a track record of somewhat sort of gambling with the global economy. He did it with tariffs as well. And the effects of the energy crisis could be much worse than the effects of tariffs. For somebody who's meant to be sort of driven about the business, meant to be all about sort of business and driven by business concerns, he does seem awfully cavalier with the global economy, doesn't he?
Well, he has a bit of a messianic complex at the moment. He thinks he's saving the world. He said he's saving us from the cancer that is Iran and words like that. So, but I think this is where the public in the US does feel baffled, because they were feeling pretty happy with Donald Trump when he came in. He immediately closed the southern border. That was like, promises kept. He was going to stop immigration. But then, of course, they didn't like what ICE, the masked men of the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, were doing on streets of Minneapolis and other cities. And so he lost support over that. Also, having done well on immigration as soon as he came in, what was it? It was about March or something. He said, right, we're going to tariff the whole world. And everybody was like, what? Do we have to? What, even those weird islands that only have penguins on them? And then, just as they thought, well, the stock market is booming again, inflation is down, maybe things are going to get better and we're going to enter this new golden age. It's like, boom, war in Iran. He acts like it's going to be easy, like Venezuela. I mean, perhaps the military war will stop soon, but the aftershocks won't. And we're left with the oil crisis and the long-term effects of instability in the Middle East.
Well, let's talk a bit more about the politics of that among his supporters, because you've been writing about why his vice president, J.D. Vance, has been put in a difficult spot here. You point out that Vance said he was against war with Iran just 2 years ago, warning that such a conflict could spark World War III. How's he feeling right now, do you think?
I think he's in hiding. I mean, to be fair to Vance, he did emerge at the airport with Trump to greet the bodies of the 6 soldiers who died in Kuwait, but otherwise has barely been seen at all. He was left in Washington at the Situation Room, the room where it wasn't happening, for the actual attack on Iran, because the vice president and the president have to be different rooms at the time. But he looked very uncomfortable. He's made it clear he's not really happy with the war. But the thing is, when I say made it clear, it's reported that he said, look, you've got to go big and fast or not at all. preferably not at all, meaning the read between the lines bit. And since then, he's gone quiet. He's gone pretty silent on X, a place there where he likes to intervene with people. And he's just out of step in terms of what Donald Trump wants. And even if J.D. Vance is proved right about the war, that perhaps there should have been more caution exercised before engaging in it. We have to hope he's wrong about World War III, by the way. Then I don't think Donald Trump's going to thank him for it. He's found himself out of touch with a lot of Donald Trump, people who vote for Donald Trump, come what may. And there's been a fracturing of the MAGA coalition over this. You've got the sort of podcasters, the bro podcasters in one corner. J.D. Vance is mates with them, Tucker Carlson and so on. And then you've got that MAGA Christian base that is seeing in this war sort of end times prophecy and very supportive of Israel and is 100% behind this Iran war. So the MAGA base is not unified at the moment. And at the moment, J.D. Vance is out of step with a lot of people who are still in lockstep with Trump.
Does Vance have his own people? Because as you say, he's close to the likes of the podcasters, the likes of Tucker Carlson. He was at one point deemed to be close to, say, sort of Elon Musk. But does he have the bit of the MAGA movement that is opposed to this war, or at least skeptical about this war, is he in any sense their leader? Are they his?
No. They're his mates. He kind of hitched themselves to their wagon and they hitched themselves to him and suggested to Trump that they might like to have this young acolyte of theirs, J.D. Vance, as vice president. I'm thinking of people like Musk, Peter Thiel. Don Jr. at the time liked Vance, but let's not forget that Don Jr. is often cited as a future president as well by MAGA faithful. So he's got his own ambitions. And Tucker Carlson, the broadcaster, who's very hostile to this war, also has his own ambitions. So I think that Vance is going to end up rather hung out to dry over this. I mean, he's also been very friendly with Erica Kirk and thought he could inherit that youth wing of MAGA, Turning Point USA. Charlie Kirk, who was himself skeptical of war in Iraq, was killed obviously in the autumn, and he looked like he was inheriting that movement. But that movement is falling apart under dreadful conspiracy theories and infighting. So no, I think J.D. Vance is beginning to lose his base.
Does he? I mean, why is that? Is it just because he's not? Is it because he's trying to sort of hold together an hold togetherable thing? Is it because he's not very popular? Is it something about him personally?
Well, I think there is aspects to J.D. Vance that are about him. I mean, the Democrats tried very hard to bully him during the run-up to the election campaign in 24. He is very smart. Let's not lose sight of that. J.D. Vance is an intelligent guy, but he decided to abandon his former beliefs to hitch his star to Donald Trump's wagon. And then Donald Trump just changes his views. He turns direction whenever he feels like it. And plenty of his supporters are willing to do that. Now, Vance, can't afford to U-turn too many times because he's always out there, saying the more extreme versions often of even what Trump is saying. He started that sort of, Haitian thing about cats and dogs and things. And anyway, so he kind of intellectually, he gets left beached by Donald Trump whenever Trump changes direction, which is, as we've seen, is pretty often.
It's fascinating to contrast him with somebody like Marco Rubio, who was at first just being sort of humiliated by Trump on a daily basis, and now seems to be absolutely at the heart of the Trump project. Is there a sense that actually what's happening here is that Trump is sort of becoming a much more conventional Republican president, and Vance is just very much still more on the kind of sort of the maverick side of politics?
Well, only if you think that conventional Republicans like to launch wars.
Kind of do, Sarah.
For the hell of it.
Yeah.
Well, you have to go back to, people forget, you have to go back to 2001. I don't think that George Bush thought he would be launching wars, but there was the 9/11 attacks. Now, there are all kinds of reasons possibly invented for why going into Iraq was a good idea. But America had felt attacked on its own soil, and that was a very different atmosphere. I think Trump, on the contrary, has this idea that he is, this most consequential president ever. He used to talk about being more important, bigger, better than Lincoln and Washington, and you'd think, oh, come off, even he doesn't really believe that. But I'm beginning to think he's going for the history books in a really monumental way. And if he leads us down this path, yeah, he might be well into them, but not necessarily for the right reasons. But he's you saw that prayer meeting at the White House. I don't know if you saw the photograph of people, all these religious leaders laying hands on him. I really do believe that when Trump escaped that assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania, in the run-up to the presidential election, that he started to believe what a lot of evangelical pastors are telling him, that he is here for a purpose, that he's somehow part of God's mission, even though he's not particularly religious himself.
Yeah.
And it's a kind of complicated story almost, because the evangelical pastors believe he is the sort of sinner appointed to save the world. And I think he kind of believes that.
It'd be extremely Trump to not really believe in God, but still think that God should definitely believe in him. What does this mean, finally, Sarah, for the succession? Because I mean, Vance is still topping some Republican succession polls, but I mean, then who should he be worrying about looking over his shoulder? Is it Rubio? Is it Donald Trump Jr.? Is it somebody else? What do you think?
I think it might be Donald Trump himself. I mean, Donald Trump is not just going to hand over his presidency to J.D. Vance. I mean, I think you did used to talk a bit about the dream ticket of Vance and Rubio, and maybe that's still there. And Vance has kept his foreign policy powder dry. Rubio can do that as vice president, whatever. Maybe that will come back. But the polls show that Democrats, including Gavin Newsom, who's got quite a lot of baggage, could beat J.D. Vance. And I think, Democrats are not that popular, but then nor is JD. So I think the succession is going to be a mess, and it might be a mess anyway, because I really don't think Donald Trump wants to go. He's probably going to have to, so I don't want to exaggerate this, but I don't think he wants to go. I think Don Jr. definitely has ambitions of his own. Eric Trump has ambitions. Son-in-law, who knows what's going on there? The Jared Kushner and Ivanka seem to be quite a strong double act. So it's not in the bag for JD, and he is getting beached by these about turns of Donald Trump.
Really fascinating. Thank you very much indeed. That is Sarah Baxter there, the director of the Marie Colvin Centre for International Reporting. And also, of course, Sarah was former deputy editor of the Sunday Times.